working on for about the last year and a half, is building a consortium and a relationship between my consulting and development company, real estate development company, and two of the nation's premier federally funded research labs. The first of which is the National Renewable Energy Lab, which is our nation's premier federally funded lab in advanced energy, energy efficiency, and really across the whole spectrum of energy, advancing energy and renewable energy. So wind, solar, biofuels, electric drivetrain vehicles, lithium-ion batteries across that whole spectrum. And then secondly, with the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research, which manages the National Center for Atmospheric Research on behalf of the National Science Foundation. The National Center for Atmospheric Research is our nation's premier federally funded lab in weather forecasting, earth sciences, climate analysis, and climate mitigation. And it just so happens, Sumath, that both of those labs own and operate two of the fastest high-performance supercomputers in the world. So these are machines operating at petaflop speed. That's quadrillion, multiples of a quadrillion floating point calculations a second. When the machine was, our most recent machine was commissioned and put online maybe January or so of this year, in its prior entity, they were in probably the 20 fastest high-performance supercomputers in the world. NREL also has a machine on Peregrine, and it's also petaflop speed. And when it was commissioned, it was not only one of the fastest machines in the world, but the most energy efficient, high-performance supercomputer in the world. So there are assets at these labs that are unique to almost any place in the world. So not only do these labs have high-performance supercomputing power, but as a practical matter, what that means is that we now have machines at our disposal with processing speeds that humankind has never had before. So when we run models around figuring out the best methodologies around advanced energy, around weather forecasting, around climate analysis, these labs and the researchers are able to do it at a level of refinement and sophistication we have never, ever been able to do. And that's the reason why so many of the models are so refined and accurate, the predictions around them, the kinds of toolkits that we can build from that, the kinds of opportunities that these labs can now productize. It's completely different from what their capabilities were 36, 48, 60 months ago. So I've now created a consortium between my company Formative, the National Renewable Energy Lab, and the National Center for Atmospheric Research. We executed a long-term agreement, which is multiples of 5 years, and it's intended to be in place long enough for us to make potentially global game-changing options for our region, for the country.
Nice. So why should people care about this, both Coloradans and beyond?
Well, I think Coloradans in particular should care about it from the perspective that there are groups of us that are working together to break down the silos around assets and around backyard. So it's quite often the case that more people know about these labs outside of Colorado in other parts of the U.S. or maybe overseas than Coloradans do. And I think it's really important for Coloradans to understand that with the exception of Washington, D.C. and the Beltway area, Northern Virginia, we probably have more federally funded research labs than any other place in the country. So we have the top ones. And then along with that, it gives us the opportunity to be able to say, well, let's build a protocol and a set and a business plan where we can all work together, not only to get the technology that is inside these labs out into the commercial marketplace, but to allow others, third parties outside, we call it outside the fence, to be able to access the resources inside. And those resources inside are not just these high-performance supercomputers, but for instance, the National Renewable Energy Lab has a facility called the Energy Systems Integration Facility. It's unique in the country. It's the only facility we have that can model and test energy systems at scale, at utility scale. So rather than having a new inverter set that you'd like to finally get the last bits test at and see how it interacts with the utility system and spend a year, year and a half, or 2 years negotiating an interconnection agreement with the utility, you can get into the lab get a protocol signed up, and have it tested at scale. Also have the imprimatur of the National Renewable Energy Lab on your product when you're finished. Access to engineers, be able to make changes to it, modifications to it, and then productize it. No one else can do that.